The world today is in some ways a planet of the apes, as we, modern humans, are the most populous megafauna and are also the most widely distributed, with populations being found in nearly every biome and on all continents. And seeing that we do belong to the Hominoidea superfamily, we are technically apes. However, if you've seen the movie, Planet of the Apes, you'll know that we're not really considered part of the equation in the film, with the ape part of the title pretty much only referring to non-human apes.
I will say disclaimer, I have not seen Planet of the Apes, so if there's any references to that, they're going to go over my head. I am doing wonderful today, an ordinary gamer. Hope you're doing well today.
And when you focus on non-human apes, modern Earth suddenly becomes anything but the planet of the apes, since all hominoids minus humans are threatened closely by extinction. On top of this, their range is extremely restricted, with small groups only inhabiting certain parts of Africa and Asia, with a total population of well under 1 million.
Alright.
But it wasn't always like this, and once upon a time, apes were among the most successful mammals around, while also being the most dominant primates on Earth. This golden age of apes saw an unprecedented amount of species emerge, which were extremely diverse in both size and adaptations, helping to set the stage for a reign that would span across an entire epoch. Specifically, the Miocene. But before we hop into the real-life Planet of the Apes, let me take a second to speak about my favorite mythological creature, dragons.
Oh.
Specifically Dragon City, who is the sponsor of today's video. Dragon City is a little bit like How to Train Your Dragon, except on that Popeye spinach. There are over 1,000 different dragons that you can collect, hatch, or even evolve, some of which are based upon YouTubers. So if you ever wanted to raise a dragon version of your favorite YouTuber, now's your chance. Which unfortunately does not include us, but maybe in the future. Could be a thing. But of course, dragons aren't just some decoration for your city. These are fire-breathing, flying
Look, if y'all convince me to play Elden Ring, I'm gonna come for all y'all. they will probably be some what do we call it here?
Which will also get you a special bundle with 15,000 food and 30,000 gold, as well as the very rare Iceling Dragon to get you started. This time period first began approximately 23 million years ago, following the end of the Oligocene. And while its entirety is associated with apes, it actually didn't start with any apes around, since during the very first days they had yet to evolve. Though this did not last very long, and it's believed that a mix of overall primate diversification and an uptick in temperatures worldwide led to a member of the Catarrhinae, otherwise known.
Why is my sound being weird for this video? What's going on here? Will that fix it?
An uptick in temperatures worldwide led to a member of the Catarrhinae, otherwise known as Old World monkeys, evolving into the very first ape.
Stable volume, you suck. Why are you turned on? Because that was absolutely annoying to hear.
Due to the imperfectness of fossilization, we're not 100% sure of who the first ape was, but some paleontologists point to the proconsul as being the likeliest candidate. This mammal is so far the oldest known primate that most accept as being an ape, with its fossils dating back to around 22 million years ago. This guy, unbeknownst to it, marked the beginning of what would become the Planet of the Apes. Yet it wasn't exactly as ape-like as you'd imagine, since it retained some monkey-like features, including a pronograde posture, meaning it had a horizontal body position where the trunk was held roughly parallel to the ground. Ultimately though, it was still unlike anything before it, with some of its more ape-like characteristics including a stabilized elbow, no tail, being larger in size, and having improved grasping abilities. The last two features were perhaps the most important part in its swift success, as its grasping capabilities let it better interact with its environment, while its size, which was akin to that of a bonobo, allowed it to intimidate smaller competition, and within a short period of time, it became the most dominant primate within its environment of Kenya and Uganda, where it lived in subtropical forests, sustaining itself on primarily raw fruits. But the apes would not be confined to just these two countries for long, as within a few million years, they managed to further diversify and spread out, thanks to a widespread increase in subtropical forests, their preferred habitat. And soon enough, over 14 distinct genera emerged, who all greatly differed in size, with the smallest being the size of a capuchin monkey,
Huh.
while the largest, a newer species of proconsul,
It's adorable.
could get as big as relatively large male chimpanzees, who, as you may know, can be absolute units. But despite their varying sizes, one thing they all had in common was mobile hips, shoulders, wrists, ankles, hands, and feet, which made them extremely flexible. Additionally, they all had relatively similar diets that were mainly composed of herbivorous matter. However, each learned to specialize in their own niche, with some, like the Moronopithecus, having developed teeth made to explicitly shear leaves from trees, while others, like Dendropithecus, had dentition that reflected a more broad diet, consisting of leaves, fruits, and flowers. Undoubtedly, though, these guys enjoyed a rather pacifistic lifestyle, but some paleontologists speculate that early apes may have seldomly eaten meat as well. They were also by no means defenseless, seeing that each had canines which could be used for a variety of tasks, including interspecific competition and warding off would-be predators. These adaptations, though, were surely important, and before the end of the early Miocene, the apes had already achieved a higher level of diversity than seen today, and excluding humans, they had also established a larger rule. When
I'm just gonna look here at this map. Alrighty.
going off of how many countries they could be found in. Yet what these early apes built, so to speak, was nothing compared to what was coming. Because just over 16 million years ago, these primates got a huge boost from Mother Nature, which involved a global drop in sea levels that formed a land bridge between Africa and Eurasia. Many mammals at this time took this opportunity to branch out, and so did the apes, with some paleontologists thinking that it was specifically the Afropithecus and Heliopithecus who were the ones to rise to the challenge, likely passing through Saudi Arabia, where they then offshooted into both Asia and Europe. Interestingly, many of the apes who didn't migrate ended up vanishing, but it wasn't necessarily their lack in taste of adventure that stopped them from leaving Africa, but rather it was something that they were missing that the Afropithecus and Heliopithecus both possessed. And this secret weapon could be found in their teeth, or rather, around their teeth, as dental remains belonging to these apes show the presence of very thick enamel coats, i.e. the same thing that forms a hard shell around your very own teeth, protecting them from damage. The unusual thickness of these prehistoric apes' enamels was likely the key to theirs and their descendants' success, since it made it possible for them to eat a wide range of hard foods, like nuts, which are also more common in Eurasian forests.
I don't know why, I just find apes and monkeys absolutely adorable, and I don't know why. Granted, I would never want to keep one as a pet, but absolutely adorable.
And along with this advantage, they also didn't have to worry about the coldness that we usually associate with parts of Europe and Asia today, as pretty much the entire Miocene epoch was quite a bit warmer than the present. And thus, with relative ease and quickness, apes became widespread throughout Asia and Europe, thus expanding their range to a total of 3 continents. This expansion ultimately led to even further diversification, with Europe alone yielding more than 16 different species. To have witnessed Europe during these times would have been quite mind-blowing, as unlike Asia, which still has some surviving apes, Europe is totally apeless, barring humans, that is. Unfortunately, limited remains have led to very little being known about many of the European members.
Now I'm wondering, why are there no more apes in Europe? Like, is it just like a giant case of like just urbanization and what do they call it? And just society's overall expanding? Or is it a little more natural than that?
But we do know a bit about a few, one being the Oreopithecus. And no, sadly, its name has nothing to do with Oreos. This ape could be found in Tuscany and Sardinia, where it lived in swamp-like habitats. But it wasn't its habitat that has fascinated researchers, with its real crowd pleaser being its ability to stand on 2 legs. This is obviously a huge deal, yet this ape wasn't a biped like how we or some of our forefathers were.
What?
Rather, it achieved an erect posture by turning its big toe to a 100-degree angle in relation to its other toes.
That looks absolutely uncomfortable, like holy heck. Like just imagine, just trying to do something like that with my hand just feels weird. Just like that's just It's probably why there's no slots in the US. I mean, maybe. I don't know much about the slots stuff, so I couldn't really say for and make any important comment on
which
that.
essentially turned its foot into a tripod. This ultimately allowed it to prop itself upright in order to stand taller and better see predators, like the Machairodus and Metylurus. Yet the tripod technique was overall still flawed, as any meaningful locomotion would have resulted in the Oreopithecus becoming unbalanced, thanks to the angle of its big toe. Meanwhile in Asia, apes were doing even better, consisting of both more species and holding a wider distribution. And a select few could actually be found in both continents, such as the Gryphopithecus, who resided in Central Europe and the Asian part of Turkey. It is also in Asia where you would find an ape that you might recognize, a gibbon. This is a family of apes that are still kicking today within certain parts of Asia, being represented by the Hylobates, Hulak, Nomascus, and Symphalangus. And while these modern gibbons can be traced far back in time, they weren't the ones that were around in the Miocene. Instead, the Miocene gibbons consisted of Euonmopithecus and one unidentified genus, but they both resided in China. Preliminary studies suggest that these prehistoric gibbons were close in size to modern ones, and could have been remarkably similar in appearance and behavior as well. If accurate, this would mean that they showed low sexual dimorphism, did not make nests, and participated in long-term relationships, unlike many other apes. Additionally, we could expect these guys to have been tree dwellers, who used brachiation, a type of locomotion that involves swinging from branch to branch. We also know that there is a chance that these apes had a partial taste for meat, since extant ones have been observed both hunting small birds and consuming bird eggs. This possibility of eating birds may make gibbons seem a bit nefarious, compared to other Miocene apes, but it did not necessarily make them more dangerous. And in reality, the other Miocene apes were all possibly still quite aggressive despite having more mundane diets. This is because primates in general are typically ranked above other mammals when it comes to displayed aggression, which is a result of primates, especially apes, being extremely territorial and social. Some scientists have also speculated that intelligence could be a part of the equation as well. Of course, though, we don't know how smart these prehistoric apes were for certain, but the general consensus is that, like most apes of today, those of the Miocene most likely demonstrated above average intelligence for a mammal, perhaps even cooperating in a rudimentary fashion.
Hey, welcome on in, Evo. Hope you're doing well.
Tools, an hypothesis based off the fact that even
you get the anime voice actor stuff out of here. It's not possible. Not gonna happen. Never.
Capuchin monkeys, who are not apes, are sometimes known to use large stones to process tough material. That being said, none of the apes mentioned so far were likely as smart as the primates you typically associate with intelligence, as they were not great apes. Not to worry though, because the golden age of apes did in fact see the rise of the great apes themselves. It's not certain when or where they evolved, but it's thought that roughly 17 million years ago, great apes had almost certainly already split off from the others, and just 4 million years later, they, like their lesser relatives, could be located in both Africa and Eurasia. With the great apes around, things drastically changed, and new heights were reached thanks to distinct differences between them and other apes. These differences included larger brains and larger body sizes, the latter of which is what inspired the great in the name Great Apes, with the average Miocene genus having been about the size of a chimpanzee. Some, though, got quite a bit bigger, as demonstrated by the Indopithecus, the biggest primate to have lived during the entire Miocene. Its name, meaning the Indian ape, nicely reveals that this great ape inhabited India, with its fossils specifically being restricted to the northern regions. Most of these fossils consisted of teeth and sizable jawbones that were so big that paleontologists used to think that Indopithecus wasn't a valid genus and that its members were really Gigantopithecus, which is the biggest primate currently known to have ever lived. This stature also led to its scientific name, Giganteus, which speaks for itself, and currently, modern estimates paint it to have been about 5 feet or 1.5 meters tall, while being about the same weight as a gorilla, Earth's current largest primate.
I'm starting to feel kind of short. A little short. Not too short, but a little short. just be trying to be a little short. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay being short.
But this ape likely wouldn't have looked like any gorilla you've ever seen. Rather, it probably resembled an orangutan, if anything, as it belonged to the Ponginae family, a family of apes whose only living member is the orangutan,
Huh.
making it the Indopithecus's closest living relative. However, unlike the orangutan, studies on the Indopithecus indicate that it didn't spend much time in the trees, and it was a terrestrial creature that foraged the grounds, feasting on large quantities of bamboo among other foliage. On top of being big, it was quite robust too, which allowed fully grown adults to be protected from attacks from most predators. Although, despite its heftiness and presumed strength, the Indopithecus was not necessarily the most dominant nor the most successful great ape of the Miocene, with that title perhaps going to Lufangpithecus, who based off of the sheer amount of its remains, was likely the most common primate of the Miocene, and it was actually one of the Indopithecus's neighbors, being found in China, and was represented by
Why
three
is
different
my
species.
sound being like this?
Up until now,
Is this video
thousands of fossils
itself?
belonging to this ape have been discovered, and showed that it was actually a smaller great ape, with adults only being about 50 kilograms or 110 pounds, similar to the size of a baboon. Its seemingly high population was likely the result of China containing expansive evergreen broad-leaved forests that experienced a relatively warm climate throughout the Lufangpithecus's existence. These rich forests provided it with an abundance of food such as hard and soft fruits. But despite the benefits that these rich forests provided, this great ape still has some considerable obstacles in life that came in the form of potential predators, such as crocodiles and saber-toothed cats. Disease was also quite rampant, evidenced by multiple specimens bearing signs of gingivitis, a form of gum disease that is relatively common amongst humans today. While Indopithecus had the size, and Lufangpithecus had the numbers, there were still a plethora of other interesting great apes that you could have run into, one of the most captivating being the Danuvius. This primate lived in what is now Germany some 12 million years ago, and it was unlike any ape before it, as some researchers have labeled it as the first ape to have been able to walk fully upright. This bold claim comes from the discovery of leg bones that were remarkably similar to our own. They also had S-shaped curved spines, which could have been used to help hold their bodies up while standing tall. And the bizarreness did not stop with the legs, as in addition to human-like leg bones, it also had orangutan-like arms, leading its researchers to describe it as an ape and a hominin all in one. Its robust, lanky arms would have allowed it to easily climb up trees and swing from branch to branch.
So, this little rabbit, or rabbit, wow.
Its robust, lanky arms
This-
researchers to describe it to easily climb up trees and
where is
swing
it?
from branch to
Yeah,
branch.
this little monkey here, it kind of reminds me of this, there was this toy monkey plush that my dad had, and it was a, what was it? And he had just hanging in his cards, little like Velcro ends on his hands and feet, and they would just hang there, and like that monkey there just it just reminded me of it for some reason. I don't know why. I don't even know why I called it a rabbit. Maybe it was the whitish color. I don't know. I'm stupid. Don't quote me on that though.
Branch. And in life, paleontologists do not think that it relied on one pair of limbs more than the other, and simply used whichever was best fitted for its needs within a given moment. And of course, in true prehistoric fashion, things got even weirder, because on its feet, the Danuvius had something we don't, and that is strong opposable big toes. The presence of these toes, along with its humanish legs, has made certain people suggest that Danuvius might have been doing the majority of its walking in the trees, where it used its strong toes to grasp branches as it walked on top of them. This would have also freed up its hands, which could have then been used to collect food, and it offered another means of escaping predators who could climb as well. And so obviously, the Danuvius was no doubt a very odd great ape. But of course, due to the sheer diversity of apes at the time, there are plenty more genera lurking about that would have widened your eyes in shock. Take Dryopithecus, for example, a small great ape who may have exhibited hyperaggression.
There's a lot more apes
hypothesis
than I
based off of the growth
realized.
patterns seen in the male's canines. Or look at Ardipithecus, a possible hominin, meaning it belonged to our very...
Where
or
is
look
it?
at Ardipithecus.
He just looks out of it, man. That one just looks out of it. He just looks like he's having a good time. He just looks a little out of it. I need to look up pygmy marmoset. Uh, more apes than I realized. You know what? I'm gonna let you have that one. I'm gonna let you have that. What's this called? Pygmy marmoset. Oh my god. The image Google gives me when I just look it up on my phone is just it just has this look of, what the fuck? I cannot.
Ithacus, a possible hominin, meaning it belonged to our very own tribe, who was likely strikingly similar to the chimps that we know of today, despite being nearly 6 million years old. And all in all, paleontologists believe that the Miocene, or rather, the true planet of the apes, saw over 100 different species rise up. This absurd amount of species is a striking contrast compared to the just 35 or so species known from the Pliocene, the epoch that followed, and that's including non-ape primates too. And sheer numbers wasn't the only indicator of their success, because as mentioned, their range was far greater than anything ever seen afterwards, and this map really helps to show this. However, the map does bring up a new question, one of great importance, and that is, what exactly happened to the planet of the apes? Well, just like how nature seemingly gave them all they needed to succeed, in other words, a warmer humid climate and expansive forests, it also eventually took everything they needed away. Basically, as the Miocene winded down, the Earth started to cool and dry, a result of the late Miocene cooling event, which in itself was caused by a drop in atmospheric carbon dioxide and a change in Earth's obliquity, i.e., the angle Earth's axis of rotation is tilted as it travels around the sun.
Oh, that reminds me. Did you guys hear about how we've tilted a little bit? Like the globe itself. It's an interesting bit.
And unfortunately, these shifts were ultimately catastrophic for the dense forests which the Miocene apes depended on, leading to a slow but assured end of the real planet of the apes. And don't forget to check out Dragon City by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code, which will also get you a special bundle with 15,000 food and 30,000 gold, plus the very rare Iceling Dragon to get you started.
No, no. I'm not tilted. I'm not tilted, bitch.